For today's demo, the main thing that I want to talk about is how to get character out of your character. One of the big things that will happen when we're animating a scene is that it's very easy to fall into the, I'll call it the trap of leaving our characters blank and then trying to get personality and animate a walk or animate anything out of this, a T-pose. This tells us nothing about the characters. It tells us that the character is in a T-pose, and I'm using the Jules rig. Yay. But how do I animate these characters? When I look at this character, how are they going to walk? How are they going to talk? How are they going to approach a certain situation? We don't know. It's how do we do it? The key here is that before even animating, you want to put your characters into a character pose. Take the time to take your character and pose them on how this character would stand. Not only is it going to make your shots feel more interesting, more dynamic, but you're going to get an idea of how to move the character right away. And let's actually prove that here. I'm actually going to open up a scene, and this is going to be the end result of what we're going to be doing today, but I figured might as well show it here as we talk about this. So as we're doing this, let me find it here. Okay, it is, there we go. So the goal here is to pose out our characters so that we understand how they'll move, how they'll talk, how they'll approach a scene. Once we know that, animating a character's walking, talking, doing anything, any little action, even if they just have to sip their coffee in the morning, instead of just having the Jules rig sipping coffee, you will have a character sipping coffee. This person, not this rig, not this set of polygons and geometry and controls. You will have a character. So that's going to be the goal of today, and let's see if Maya is going to respond to me here. Oh, there you go. And let's see, do you mean posing of the first animation or just posing in another scene before really animating him? It would be posing in the same scene, and usually what you would have with this is a character library. So you could technically do this outside of your scene, but it's taking your characters and putting them into a character before you do anything else. So this was a test I was doing for a little short that I was going to end up doing. I never had time to kind of get it done. But here we have two characters. Let's just kind of go full screen here. And there we go. Nice and full screen. So for anyone who doesn't know, if you hit Control Spacebar, it actually goes full screen in Maya. So if ever you want to just take a quick big look at your scene, there you go. So we've got these two rigs. Now if we look at these, how would these characters move? How would they interact with the world? It's kind of hard to see. They're really just two rigs in the T-pose. They kind of look, their designs are different in this case, but other than that, how would they walk? Let's think of the walk. A vanilla walk? Do they have a skip in their step? I don't know. Do they just drag their feet? Can't tell. So anything that we have to animate here, we really have to work hard to envision how this character is going to move, because we're given nothing on how this character would interact with the world. So again, pose them out. Who is this character? Usually before you even animate any shot, you should know who your character is. Are they energetic? Are they lazy? Are they big and boisterous? Are they timid? All of these things. So here we actually posed that out. So this was a character pose I did. How would this character just stand normally? And we ended up with this. Suddenly, we get a little bit more attitude out of these characters. One character is a little shy. They're holding their arm. So when they move, they'll be a little bit more timid as they go around the world. But their stance is very wide. So that means that when they move, they're not going to walk with their feet like very narrow. They might have kind of longer strides. They have this kind of more laid back stance. The other person, feet are narrower. Still kind of laid back, but in a slightly different way. She doesn't look, if you watch the head direction, she doesn't look at who she's talking to. She's looking at the side. So this tells us that this character doesn't like to interact with people, or at least not like, she doesn't like to get close to people. So how would she walk? Well, maybe she's gonna have a little bit more of a sachet in her walk, but kind of like keeping the head low and trying not to get into people, or like not getting close to people, or letting people get close to her. She's in control of the situation. And this was another variation. So now we get even more so that the character on the right is shy and closed off a little bit more, especially with the feet. How do they sit? You don't have to do all of this. Honestly, this is excessive, but different ways the characters can sit. How would they look if they're happy? How would they look if they're angry? You do these poses, and again, just very short. Honestly, all you really need is the first pose. How do they stand? From there, you will get an idea of how they will move. This is super important. Now, there's a question here. Are there any scrapped shots from the short? No, I never actually got to the animation portion, unfortunately. I was about most of the way through storyboarding, and then I just ran out of time. Is this why recording booths always have posters of the characters in their idealized classic poses? Basically. You'll see this in studios a lot, even with animators. When you're in a studio, especially like, let's say a Disney style studio, larger studio, when you're animating the character, they will actually have maquettes of the character, little figurines printed or sculpted, that you can put on your desk to keep an eye on and see how the character should look. And then you can move it around and look at it at all angles. They'll have posters, they'll have artwork on all the walls. If you go to Disney, when they're on a project, they put all of the production art on the walls, so that as you're walking through the hallways, you can be inspired and go, that's the feeling I want for this film. That's the pose. That's the character there. It keeps you on track. This is also why you have a supervising animator and character leads who are there to make sure that you stay on character. But we as animators, when we're working, can go and do this one extra step, so that as we're animating the character, we are not animating two rigs. Just these two rigs. We are animating these two very specific characters. It is super important that we have that distinction. And then can you keep those afterwards, the maquettes? Sometimes you can, sometimes you can't. So for example, when the crew that were working on Pirates of the Caribbean at ILM, when they finished the first Pirates of the Caribbean film, I believe every member of the crew was given one of the gold coins from the treasure chest, which is really cool. You also get very lucky where sometimes when they're done with a film, they kind of throw out some of the props and stuff because they don't need it anymore. And I believe I know one person who got Davy Jones, the wheel of the Flying Dutchman, that's the word I'm looking for, from the third Pirates of the Caribbean film, the wheel from the ship of the maquette. They had just thrown it out and they actually managed to get the wheel. So you never know what you can get. Dumpster diving, yeah. It's not really dumpster diving, but you just ask, and sometimes they'll go, yeah, take it. But yeah, sometimes they'll let you keep the maquettes. Other times, if they only have like one or two, they keep it for the studio. Like I know at Pixar, they've got like little displays and stuff that they put out these maquettes and stuff to keep people inspired, and it's kind of like a little museum, which is really nice. So for today's actual demo of posing, what I want to do is I'm going to take these two characters, and right now we have the same rig. So this is a good test that I would recommend. If you have some time, try this yourself. Take the same rig. We've got two different rigs here, or two different copies of the same rig, I should say. And right now they are exactly the same. If you were to try and guess the personality of one of these characters versus the other, they are just bland and perfectly identical. So, hey, twins, yay! But we don't want that. We want each of these characters to feel unique, to feel like they are a true character all on their own. So, let's try to do that. We're going to pose out each of these characters and see if we can make them feel like a totally different person, just in their posing, with no animation, nothing else, just that first pose. And then we're not going to animate it, but we're going to try and envision how that person would move and see how much easier it is to come up with new and unique animation ideas based on a pose. So, how do we start? Well, first you have to know who your character is. If you're preparing a shot, so something for your demo reel, most likely and ideally you should know who your character is. You come up with who this person is, a little bit of their backstory, what's their personality. All of this is very important to do. But if you're doing a quick test like that, you don't really want to come up with a whole backstory and a whole list of things. So typically what I'll do is I'll come up with 3 adjectives to describe this character. Usually just come up with them randomly. Or if you want to really just kind of try something out and see where it goes, look up a character generator. So I just did a Google search before the stream here on character generator. This was one of the first that came up. I'll post the link here if anyone's interested. So there's our character generator. And right here we have 2 positive adjectives, 2 negative adjectives. So let's see what we get. So you just do that. And there you go. You've got your adjectives. From there, try to figure out how this person would stand and move. So we've got an inspiring person and they're considerate. So inspiring. If I think of inspiring, how does an inspiring person stand? It's usually a little straighter, not in that condescending kind of snotty or snooty way. It's that kind of just like not quite superhero pose, but just like bigger than life. Like kind of when you think of Walt Disney, he's not a big imposing man, but there's just, when you see his statue next to Mickey Mouse, it's just that inspirational pose. Or Jim Henson, again, not a big person, but just they stand straight, they stand there's a little bit of confidence in there, and it's almost like they look at you and they're not looking down at you, but they're looking to lift you up with them. Okay, considerate. Considerate, they would be, again, ready to help. So they might lean forward a little bit because they're just ready to offer assistance. So they might be a little considerate. Now, greedy. How do we mix that in? Now we're getting into the negative adjectives. So maybe he's standing tall and inspirational, but you can have inspirational people that are very greedy. So maybe as he stands, how could we sell the greed? We could add a little bit of maybe just the hands. The hands are a little bit more like clutchy, and it's almost like he wants to, like it's always like, yes, I want. So you get, yeah, you're a sacrifice I'm willing to make. Exactly. It's suddenly, he's still inspiring, but that look goes from I'm gonna lift you up to I'm gonna use you, and I'm going to make money off of you. So that it could be the look in the eyes or the way he holds his hands. And then lazy, well, if he's lazy, that doesn't mean that he's going to be slouching and tired, but it could be lazy in the sense of, again, he doesn't want to do the work himself, and his posture might just be a little bit more relaxed, not tight and like taut. It's going to be relaxed and just a little bit more like, you do the work. Like, he needs even just a little bit of things. He's not going to type a memo out himself. He'll ask his receptionist to type it out for him. It's just whatever. So we try to think of how this character would work, and inspiring other people to do the work for him while reaping all the benefits. Exactly. He could be one of those characters you see in cartoons all the time where, like, there was just a Mickey Mouse cartoon on this where you have the brave knight, but he never actually does any of the work. It's all his squire that does the work, and he just reaps the benefits and takes all the glory for himself. So now we're getting a little bit of a story here too. Not just a character, but a story. So, or superhero that beats the robber and then takes the money bags. Exactly, it could be something like that. So, lazy, call it being efficient. Very true. So we could do that. Or we could come up with something else. Let's try just one more as a thought experiment, and then we'll go into the posing. So I'm just gonna do that. So we've got a considerate and lovable person. So lovable, that to me makes it like that person, their face should just be like almost like a puppy dog. It's just this person that you see them and you just kind of want to give them a hug. And they're considerate, so again, they lean forward. It's always like, yes, can I help? Versus having the character pulled away and it's like putting a distance between them. It's almost like they're always ready to step forward, to offer assistance, to volunteer. They're unstable. So how would we sell unstable? They could have a twitch in their eye. That would be a simple thing. It could be just the way they look, with their head oddly tilted as they look at the person. And they're dull. So as they're kind of doing this, instead of a big wide grin, it's just kind of this like slightly flat, slightly less interesting pose. So we dull the pose a little bit. We make them feel a little bit more flat in a sense. Now, when you do these, getting FNAF, yeah, a little bit. They would hug someone to death. Exactly. So the key with this is you don't have to take all of these that you get. You can change them. So for example, dull, I might change that because dull typically means kind of flat. And in this case, because I wanted to just show a little bit of more exaggeration, let's try to avoid that. If I was doing this experiment myself, I would actually try this, but let's see. What else? Unintelligent. Okay. So unintelligent, we just kind of want that dopey, like, oh, like, kind of clueless vibe to them, where they're just looking at things and it's not that they're stupid or like that they're just totally clueless to the world, but there's just this kind of lack of a spark, I guess you could say. We could try to sell that. Now let's just do another, instead of unstable, let's just hit a few times and, oh god, dull again. Let's do cowardly. Yeah, that's a good one. How would you sell cowardly? Well, cowardly can be a lot of different things. It doesn't always mean that they're cowardly in terms of danger, although that's kind of the core feeling. Cowardly could be that they are cowardly in terms of social interaction. Keep in mind, these are just prompts. We can make a new character out of this. So they're cowards. They don't want to step outside. How can that cowardly thing come into play with the others? Well, they're a lovable person and they're considerate. So obviously they want to help people and are kind of forthright, but they're unintelligent. So maybe they've just been in so many situations where people have either taken advantage of them or like use their kindness against them, or they maybe like they're lovable and considerate and maybe they keep putting themselves out to help someone without realizing, because of the lack of intelligence, they don't realize that the person doesn't want their help in the first place. So now at this point they're like, they want to help but they're not sure if they should, and you've got this kind of this contrast in the character. We could go with something like that. So let's take this and see what we get. So honestly, when you're doing this, just come up with a whole list of these and try to pose it out. Sometimes you're going to get it, sometimes you're not, but that's the whole point. It's a practice. So let's go in here. So we've got considerate, lovable, cowardly, and unintelligent. And let's take the guy on the left here. I'm just going to turn, oops. And make sure I don't select the ground here. Okay. So how do we start posing this out? Well, considerate and lovable. Like I was saying, this is where you would just try to stand up, do it yourself. If I stand up, no one's going to see anything, so can't do that. But let's say you've got the character, he's considerate. That, like I was saying, means that he would probably lean forward a little bit. Just kind of, he's ready to go, ready for action. He keeps his eye on people. So if he's not considerate, he wouldn't care. He wouldn't look anywhere. If someone's working, he's like, whatever. Just not pay attention. If he's considerate, he's paying attention. He's watching someone. If there's someone in the room, it's not like he's staring at them creepily. That would actually be a good way. We had that unhinged. So now he's considerate, but he's too considerate. And he's watching you. Always watching. In the moment, like, you're going to pour some water for yourself. It's like, no, let me. Yeah. And then he leans back. No. That starts getting into the creepy, that unhinged feeling. No, he's considerate. He watches, but he's polite about it. So, how can we get that? He's also lovable. So lovable, we want kind of this relaxed feeling. Let's see, would it be beneficial to make a post for every attribute and then combine aspects? You could. That could be a good practice of just take one adjective at a time, try to sell that in just one pose, and then you can mix two together, mix three together, etc. Or you could just kind of try to combine them all at the same time. It really is just depending on what you want to practice. So let's see, how would we do this? Considerate. Well, let's just start with that kind of lean forward. Gonna lean forward a little bit. He's lovable, unintelligent, cowardly. So cowardly, even though he's leaning forward, I'm gonna use probably the head angle to make him just a little bit more kind of like he pulls away a little bit. So he's still watching, but there's a little bit more of a wariness to it. Again, cowardly doesn't mean that he has to be cowering away in fear. It could just be that he's worried a little bit. So, how would he stand? His feet, if he's considerate and lovable, he would probably have a little bit of a wider stance, I would think, just because it would allow him to kind of be on the move very quickly, and this would also help with the cowardly element of it. If his feet aren't kind of right next side to side, so if your feet are side to side, it makes it hard to start moving because you don't have you have to shift your weight, move your foot. You're not in a position to start moving very quickly. If your feet are a little wider apart, it makes it easy to kind of dodge out of the way and move around. So think of like a martial artist. Their feet don't go right next to each other when they're fighting. They go for a wider stance and kind of lower their center of gravity so that they can move at any point. So if he's cowardly, that works with us, or works for us, I should say, because it gives the idea that as he's standing here, he's ready to pull away. We don't want the feet so wide that he looks like he's crouched the whole time, but we can at least get a little bit of motion in there. So maybe we have a little bit of this for now. This is going to be very rough at the beginning. Okay. So we're getting that in there. Now think of the line of action that I want. I kind of want, if he's, kind of want a nice clean line of action here. Let's shift the weight over onto that leg. So he's going to be balanced over his front leg here. And then let's lean him. I'm going to lean him back a little bit, but then lean his hips forward. This is just going to help give a little bit more of a curvature to his body. And then, so he's kind of leaning forward. I think if he's cowardly, he's going to bring his body over. So let's actually exaggerate this a little bit here. Not too much. So again, like he would approach someone not straight on, but a little bit to the side. So you'd have a little bit of this what's the word I'm looking for? Not fear, but timidness to the approach. Okay, now how much do I want to push that? I could push that quite a bit, honestly. And then let's kind of push him down just a little bit more. So this first phase, you're gonna have some weirdness in the poses. Don't worry about it, honestly. As long as you're thinking through it and giving yourself a good reason for whatever it is that you're posing, you're gonna get it in the end. And this is the whole point. It is an experiment. And this is also why it's good to try and do it yourself first. Actually stand up, get into the position. So he's kind of trying to like watch people and just be considerate. So let's bring that arm up here. Maybe his hands kind of be just kind of at the ready. So not like in a grabby sense, but just kind of, he doesn't just let his arms hang. He kind of keeps them up so that he's ready to assist at any time. But he keeps them in because he doesn't want to get caught, like a little cowardly. So we'll bring that arm in just a little bit here. The other arm, let's bring that down. And kind of bring that around here. Okay. So we're going to pose out the hands and everything. He kind of looks a little creepy right now. Part of that is that the hips are not helping me. If he's leaning forward, I need to rotate his hips back. We talked about this yesterday. And then I can push the body weight forward again. And this is going to help push that line of action in the spine. And there we go. That feels a little better already. Okay. Kind of feel like I need to bring that foot out just a little bit more. Okay. So we've got that. Now, does this pose look great? Not really. And mostly because we're missing a lot of elements that still need to go in here. We need to take the shoulder. So if he's scared, that shoulder might come up a little bit. Not fully defensive, but like he wants to ask for help, but it's like he's just unsure. So maybe I'll bring that shoulder up just a little bit. And then when you're scared, your shoulders tend to come forward a little bit, kind of hunch, versus when you're confident, it goes back. So let's try to push that a little bit. Could be something like this with the hands. Let's take a look at that. Yeah, that little bit of timidness with the hands, just like Mei from Overwatch. Man, now I want to play Overwatch again. It's been so long. Let's see. You seem to have a clone? I do have a clone. Who is trying to get something. So let's jump in here. So we've got the shoulders in place. BlizzCon's on February 19th. Can't wait to hear more. Yes, I'm so excited for Overwatch 2. Okay, and there he is again.
I'm not here.
What? You're gonna need that. That's the power supply.
Where is it?
There you go. Yeah.
No one tell him I'm here.
You were never here. There you go. There we go. What? Nothing happened? I don't know. What are you talking about? He was never here. So one of the big things that's missing right now is the head angle. Head angle plays a lot in character. Just it does. And you can kind of just do this. If you raise your head up, it makes a character look like they don't care or they're looking down at someone. If you have them look like this, I'm not changing my expression, I'm just tilting my head. Gives a totally different vibe versus if you just look like a person in the eye. If he's cowardly, his head's probably going to be kind of angled down and maybe kind of like forward like this. So it makes him just kind of a little bit more scared, but he's not fully scared where he's pulling away. He's curious. So he'll tilt his head towards the thing that he wants to know about. And let's get that eye direction kind of, not like that. Get that eye direction forward a little bit. And this is going to also help with the lovable feeling because it'll help give him like that puppy dog element to him. And let's see. Okay, that's much better. The computer, because I have two rigs in here, was slowing things down a little bit. Okay. So we've got this so far. Does it work? No. It's all janky and weird. Why? What's the problem? I just need to exaggerate it more, honestly. That's the big thing. So let's try to push it some more. And actually, just for the sake of comparison, let's actually take this and I'm going to make a new key. That way we can compare how it progresses. And the reason I like to do this on these demos, I don't really do this when I'm posing normally, but it's to show that a pose doesn't have to look good right from the start. Honestly, most poses will not look good right at the beginning. You're going to start posing things out and your character is going to look messed up. It's just not going to be pretty. They're going to be unappealing. The pose is going to just look weird. Does that mean that your pose is garbage and that you should quit? No. It just means that there's a process to this. it takes time for a pose to come together. So we just want to build on these. See, just what you did now of hunching him over made him feel so much better. Yeah, the spine. We did a whole talk on this yesterday because the spine is definitely one of those areas where people don't push it nearly enough, especially students. The spine it adds so much to a character. So I really want to emphasize that curvature, that line of action. If I didn't bend him over here, it just wouldn't be interesting. And I think I can pull him back a little bit more. Just a little. Yeah, there we go. So I'm just kind of watching his balance as I turn the camera around, just trying to see him from all angles and get an idea of what this personality is. Now, let's actually do the hands. Hands are a big part of what self personality. If he's angry, he's gonna have claw hands. If he's nervous, he might have a little bit more of like this kind of subtle nervousness to the way he moves his fingers. In this case, I'm probably going to go with something. I'm just trying the hand pose myself. Let's keep this hand closed and let's make sure that it doesn't cut through his leg here. And yeah, down around there. Maybe you write down your ideas when you have them and keep them for later. Oh wait, let's see, I have a problem. I have too many ideas. I can't concentrate on one idea or shot, instead starting to procrastinate. Yeah, write them down. This is something that happens a lot. You're gonna have a lot of ideas, a lot of different things that you want to try or do. Write them down. Get a book and just keep it on hand, and anytime you come up with an idea, or even your phone or something, write it down. And it takes a while to get into that habit, honestly. But once you get into that habit, you're just gonna have a book or a document of ideas that you are ready to try at any time. And what I like about doing something like that is that whenever you have, like, maybe you're working on a shot, you don't have to finish a shot before you move on to something else. You could have 2 or 3 shots going at the same time. When you're working at a studio, that is how you work typically, is you're going to have multiple shots going all at the same time. So as you're working, that's okay. But you will have these ideas that you can jump back and forth between. So when you're kind of tired of one and like, I'm not getting it, jump to another. Take a little bit of a break. Once you have your mind kind of refreshed a little bit, jump back. Let's see. The problem is I'm having the problem while working on a shot. I'm thinking, oh my god, that idea is so much better. Again, just don't be afraid of having 2 shots going at the same time. This way, when you're working on one shot, it's like, man, that other idea would have been so good. You can be working on that as well. And then as you're working on the other idea and go, but man, I really like the other one too. Jump back to it. It's a little bit more balance, kind of work-life balance stuff, but that's what they do in a studio. And it keeps people on track and going, so that when you kind of get to a point where it's like, I don't know what I need to do next, you've got something else to work on in the meantime. So try that. It's not a ultimate solution, but it does help. I have actually found that very helpful. Like while I'm sculpting, I've been doing some sculpting recently for a different project. And there are times when I'm sculpting and it's just like, I'm not getting what I want out of this sculpt. It's just not working the way I want it to. So what I'll do is I'll take a break from that sculpt and I'll just do something else. I'll do some silly little test sculpt. In animation terms, I'll do some random posing. I'm just going to try and get different ideas out. And then once I have a little bit of a refresher, I'll jump back to my main idea and go, okay, now that I've got something else in my head and I've thrown other ideas out, let's see what I can come up with. And does my original idea that I was working on, what do I notice isn't working now? So yeah, it's really just that. And Noelia, hello, how's it going? And let's see, got a few other questions. Let me double check that I didn't miss anything here. I felt that a lot, but sometimes it's best to just push through. I definitely had that feeling when doing the basics and thought, man, why am I doing a walk cycle when I could be doing a fight scene with 6 people? Yeah, that's a slightly different issue, which all of us as animators have. It's, I have to do a walk cycle. I don't want to do a walk cycle. I want to do an epic fight scene between a dragon and like 3 knights, and then one of them jumps on and they ride the dragon off and the castle blows up and there's debris everywhere. We just want these big fancy ideas. And a big thing with that is, unless you understand your basics, the big fancy ideas are never going to work out. You're going to just struggle. So it's good to get the basics first. And for me, the thing that kind of keeps me, I guess you could say, what would be the right term, tethered, so that I don't get caught up in that I'm gonna do the next really cool awesome shot and it's gonna be epic, is just think of one of your favorite subtle scenes. So for me, I think of the Big Hero 6 shot where everyone's just sitting down. That's the one I always go back to. Or I think of the scene in Wreck-It Ralph where Ralph is destroying the car. These are scenes that honestly not that much is happening. It's 2 characters. It's not really that dynamic, but it is just so emotional, or so you just get so much character out of these scenes. And when I think on those, it reminds me that this little walk cycle that I'm doing, this just boring shot, it doesn't have to be boring. A walk cycle can have so much character. It can be so interesting. So try to get that in. Try to make it so that this simple walk cycle just oozes personality. And oftentimes those are going to be the most interesting shots. Okay, so now we've posed out the hands. You can really see how posing out the hands helps with that nervousness here. When we had the hands just flat, it just kind of felt like he's doing this, like he's about to play the bongos. Now we really get that nervousness in those hands. Okay. Let's get the neck angle just a little bit more extreme here. And if he's nervous, kind of cowardly, his neck's going to be a little bit more down. Now you definitely see that I'm pushing the cowardly aspect of this a lot more compared to the others. That's fine. There's always going to be one attribute that kind of stands out more than the others, and I can always kind of pull back on this. So right now we're starting to really feel that cowardly, but like I was saying, I feel like I'm kind of pushing that too much. So let's kind of reduce a little bit of the cowardly and let's start bringing in the considerate. So if he's considerate, I might just raise the head up a little bit more. pushing his head this way is going to help push the lovable. It'll give the puppy dog eyes. And let's actually have him maybe about to step forward just a little bit more. So by bringing the foot back here, it'll make him feel less like he's shrinking down and like crunching down, and give him just a little bit more of a step forward. Just a little. Might even push the hips just a little. There. And let's bring that elbow up just a bit here. So he's kind of reaching out. And I'm just going to try this. Let's kind of bring that hand up a bit. So it's almost like he's asking, can I help? Let's see. I don't know, but my mind went to the opposite when you said subtle, to the Spies in Disguise shot where they swat the house. Yeah, that's a good one too. That show was it kind of just disappeared. No one really talked about it afterwards, but there were some really good scenes in there, especially the sumo wrestler guy. That jelly bone situation was. I pity those animators. That must have been a nightmare to work with, but also so much fun. Let's see. How do you know what you like most in animation pipelines? I was struggling after university to choose what department I should apply. Oh, that's a good question. I feel like I like everything. Honestly, that's a very hard question because I'm kind of the same way. I like a lot of different aspects. I'm an animator. That's my job. But I really like the previs and layout section of it where you have a little bit more of that cinematography side of things. I really like the kind of rendering lighting side of things. That's kind of a hobby I used to do before, was I would do rendering and lighting in Maya. So I like that kind of stuff. I like all of I love the sound design stuff. One of my dreams when I was growing up was to be a voice actor. I'm terrible at voices, but that was one of my dreams. So like that whole sound aspect of it, I just love that, the whole Foley artist section. So honestly, it's hard. There's no one right answer that's gonna fit for you, because everything, like in your case, especially if you like all of it, you could do a little bit of everything. So choosing is going to be very tricky. I would say if you're really unsure, just try a little bit of each one. Try it and just see which one you feel is the most fun to do, because sometimes it's fun to have the idea of, oh man, I would love to do this, but then when you start doing it, it's like, yeah, I like the idea more than the process. So that could be one way of approaching it. And honestly, if you can't choose or you're really unsure, you can always just try a little bit of everything. Become a generalist. So for example, my technical role is an animator, but I would consider myself a generalist as well, because I know how to do a little bit of most things in the pipeline, in the animation pipeline. So rendering, lighting. Am I good at all of it? No. But I know how to do it a little bit. So that's not a bad thing. It's really just that exploration. Foley artists will always impress me. Oh, they are so good. And I'm at AM and actually enjoying it, but I do miss layout. Now, this is actually, like, for now, since you're in AM, keep going with animation, focus on that, just because, hey, you're paying for the program. You want to make sure that you get the most out of it. But keep in mind that maybe when you get into the studio, you can still do layout or previs. You could do previs, which is a mixture of the both. And especially if you're in a smaller studio, you might end up doing both routinely, where you're going to be doing the layout of the scenes for all the animators and then animating some of the shots you actually laid out. So that could be part of it, is you just find a job where you get to do all of it. And that's not a bad thing either. So yeah, you don't have to choose one and stick within that's it. That's all you ever do. Like, just as an example, I am an animator. I do most of the animation pipeline stuff, usually animation, but a little bit of rendering, a little bit of layout, previs, stuff like that. But I love sculpting. There's just something about sculpting that I really like. Lately, I've been doing some sculpting, mostly for myself, but it's kind of a nice little change of pace. Just because I'm an animator doesn't mean I can't do that. So right now I'm trying to think of the smile here. He's supposed to be lovable, so I want him to not be afraid. If I gave him like a fear like this, that's just gonna like go straight into the cowardly section. So now we've got the cowardly pose, but it's like, like just a little bit of a smile, a little bit of nervousness in there. This is gonna again give that puppy dog feeling of it. When we see that, just as humans, we kind of want to typically support that person, or like, oh, it's okay, pat them on the back, don't be afraid. So that's kind of what I'm aiming for here, is just a little bit of that small nervousness in there. And then let's see. I have a question about ideas. I often think I may have a good idea and a situation where I can't write it down. And then when I do write it down, it's not a great idea, but a random thought, and it's frustrating trying to remember every thought. I don't know how to balance this correctly. That's a tough one. I have that as well, where a lot of my ideas, like these really cool ideas that I feel would be amazing, I get when I'm not able to write anything down. So I'm either sleeping or driving, not so much driving anymore. Haven't really been out too much. But like in these situations where you just can't write anything down, maybe I'm cooking and it's like my hands are full, I'm taking something out of the oven, I can't write this down, I'm getting everything ready. That's gonna happen, and unfortunately there's not a real solution to it. But having one thing I've been wanting to do, I haven't done it yet, so I don't know if it'll work, is I usually have my phone with me. So I want to get an app that lets me just like say the line out loud, just record it and like just go, okay Google, and then record, and then have it record that I can just say the idea out loud. This way I'm not having to write it down, and I can still do things while I work. Now, does that work for everyone? No, because maybe you're at work and you can't just be spouting out random ideas in the middle of everyone else working. So it's I don't know if I really have a solution for you. It's trying to find that the thing that's gonna work best for you, and it's a little bit of that exploration. That's the main thing. I'm trying to avoid the smolder look. See, maybe adding just a little bit of an upturn to the brows there. It's gonna help. There it is. It's just gonna add a little bit of worry to there. Okay. We could spend a lot more time on the face. One thing that's going to help is just kind of squishing his face in a little bit. It's going to round it out. Basically every shower thought. Exactly. Like shower thoughts. There's a reason why we come up with our greatest ideas in the showers, because we can't write them down and then we're punished for it. Let's see. So yeah, something like that. Now I could keep going further with the face, but the main thing is I want the overall pose to work. I can always come back in and refine the face later. Now, let's take stock of our pose. What are we feeling here? If I look at this character, definitely feeling the cowardly, that kind of hunched, he's pulling away. That's good. Considerate? I think so. He's reaching forward. It's like he wants to help. The lovable? That mouth corner is too high here. The lovable, I definitely feel is coming through. That's mostly the puppy dog eyes. That's going to be what sells it. But now the unintelligent. Does he feel unintelligent? Not really. There's nothing in here that's showing unintelligent. Now, is that bad? Nah, not really. Because we don't have to hit every single note. It comes down to, especially if this is our scene, we can choose not to put this in. But let's say we're working on a film. I kind of want to put this in. For example, let's think of Kronk from Emperor's New Groove. He's unintelligent. And he has to have that feeling throughout. No matter what he's doing, there's this kind of blankness, or this like, you can feel that he's not the smartest guy. Now, a lot of that comes in his design, small head, huge body. But how can we sell that in this character? Well, maybe just kind of letting him be a little bit more loose can help a little bit more. It'll make him feel like there's less thoughts kind of coming into his head. If he's just a little bit kind of more down, it makes him less active. And if his body's less active, his mind is less active. Kind of bring that shoulder forward a little bit more. What else could we do? Bring that head back a little bit more here. Okay. I think it would be in the face. We can push maybe the mouth a little bit more. And it's mostly going to be the eyes. We have to take out the thought process of the eyes. Make him just kind of... It's not flattening his face, but just kind of... making it feel like he isn't really thinking. That he's just reacting. So, what would be the best way to do that? I could play with the pupil size, that might do it. Make his eyes just a little bit bigger. That'll help the lovable aspect of it. Is it the drawing that helps in good posing, or can you directly pose it out using the rig for the very first time? I didn't do any drawings for this, so you don't have to draw at all. I'm not great at drawing, So for example, we were doing some talks about posing earlier, and this is the drawing style I have. Like, my drawing style is very rough when I'm animating. If I was trying to draw this out before I attempted to bring this into Maya, like, I would probably do something a little bit like this. So yeah, that's the extent of my drawing typically. Very simple stick figures. So no, you do not need to be able to draw. If you know how to draw, great. Like, it just makes it easier, and you can throw out ideas or like try out ideas more easily and quickly. It's not a requirement. Okay, this could be tricky. I think I know how to get the unintelligent. I need to change the smile to a kind of pose where he's just gonna, like, his mouth is hanging open a little bit more. That's gonna help sell the, like, already you can kind of feel it here. That blank, just kind of, he doesn't know what to say. And the reason this kind of tends to give a unintelligent look is that normally we keep our mouth closed. It's considered rude to have the mouth open. So if you're just kind of standing there with your mouth open, it gives the feeling of like you've blanked out and you're not paying attention to what you're doing. So by pushing this here, okay, so I'm just trying to think what shapes I need here. I think a little straighter on the top. Let's see. Bring the corners down just a little bit more. Even that works pretty well. Any best ways for beginners to start posing? Any tips? I've actually done a whole bunch of streams in the last little bit, all on posing. If you go and click on the avatar down in the bottom left corner, and then go to the video page, there's a bunch of previous streams that I recorded all about posing. So I would recommend checking those out, because in there, it's really just how to approach posing, what's the thought process, all of it. Now, with that said, if you just want like a quick tip on approaching posing, the best thing to do is study. And the thing you study is poses. Look at poses. If you want to do a pose where, like, let's say a baseball pose, look at images of baseball players. If you're going to do a subtle pose, look at subtle posing. It's really just studying what kind of pose you want and then trying to capture the feeling of it. There we go. That's starting to look like slightly unintelligent. Yeah, that mouth made all the difference. So you see how suddenly there's a little bit of that blankness to him? It's just because his mouth is open. There we go. So, hey, bonjour, laissez-faire, how's it going? So, we've got that. Is it perfect? No. but it's getting there. We can keep improving this. And at this point, I'm going to take my own advice that I gave earlier, and we'll take a break from this pose and move on to the other pose. See what we can get with this character. And then we can always jump back and forth. You don't always have to finish one pose or one idea all the way before moving on to the next. It's honestly better to jump back and forth. This is something when I'm sculpting I do all the time, because it's very easy to start sculpting something and start just like zooming in on the eyes and putting all the detail on the eyes. And then when you zoom back out, everything else is still mush and you haven't sculpted anything, and it looks disconnected and totally broken. So try to bring everything up kind of in steps. You do a little bit on the eyes, then a little bit on the mouth, then a little bit on the rest of the body. Then you come back to the eyes and bring that up to the next level, and so on and so forth. Same thing here. If I've got multiple characters in the scene, I might stop working on the one character, move on to the next. See how that feels, see how they interact together. It might change what the first person or the first character I'm working on, how they stand in the scene. Let's see, when you create a character, do you start with a head or it doesn't matter? I typically, do you mean sculpting or drawing or animating? If I'm animating, I almost always start with the body. That's just because it'll make the character feel a little bit more, or it makes sure that I don't forget the body mechanics in there. So I'll start with the body first. If I'm sculpting, I start with the general proportions first, so the whole thing, size of the head, size of the body, general kind of landmarks. And then from there, I start to detail in a little bit of the head, then a little bit of the body, and so forth. But I try to start with the head because, especially with sculpting, if you want to capture a specific character, you want to make sure that it looks like the character. The body, especially if you're going to be adding clothes on top, there's not that, you don't have to get super detailed in there, but the head usually people will see. So I want to make sure that feels good. Again, I bring it up in stages though, so it's kind of head, body, back to the head, then the body, back to the head, then the body. Designing in terms of like drawing things out, I just do the whole character because I don't really get much further than this. So if I do the head, it's that. Haha, done. Wait, no. Make him happy. There we go. I'm done. There's the head. We could even go further. I'm going to get fancy. An ear. Wow. This is the extent of my drawing. So, yeah, that's about it in terms of designing the character. But yeah, in terms of sculpting, it's kind of back and forth. Okay, so we've got our first character here. Pretty good. There's definitely some things that I feel like could be pushed, especially as a line of action. But it's working pretty well. Now let's take our second character here. Let's find a pose for them. Now I just ran the character generator here, and we've got a kind, exciting, violent, evil person. Now this is a very interesting character already. They're kind, but they're violent and evil. Now this is where, at least for me, I have a lot of fun with these kind of just generators and this just kind of randomness here, because at very first thought, this can feel like this doesn't work. How can you be kind but also violent and evil? They just don't work. They don't go together. You can't be both. But you can if you think of different shows. For example, like Johan mentioned, Despicable Me. He's a very kind person, but he is kind of violent. He does try to blow things up. So maybe violent isn't the slapping everyone in the face kind of thing, but it's just violent in the sense that he loves explosions. It's just that kind of, they see an explosion, yes, that glee on their face. And they're evil. Well, evil can be kind. evil can be, in a sense, evil is more evil when it's kind. Yeah, Junkrat, exactly. So, for example, Hannibal Lecter, if anyone's seen the Hannibal series, Hannibal is extremely kind. He is one of the nicest people you'll meet. He'll invite you to dinner. He'll treat you like a treasured family member. And then he'll kill you. And he'll do it in a very violent way. So when I see this, I kind of get that vibe, that kind of Despicable Me. Like, it's either you can go with the funny route, where it's Despicable Me, Junkrat, Megamind, that kind of route. Or you could go the very scary route, the Hannibal Lecter route. Like Lucifer, like characters like that, where they are more evil because they are nice. They are kind. They will help you before they push you down the stairs. So it's not impossible. And this is one of the big things with giving traits to your character. So I don't always use a character generator. Sometimes I want a very specific character, so I'll just do it myself. But one thing I always try to do is I usually come up with 3, not 4. That's just my preference. But I will try to come up with 2 positive and 1 negative, or 2 negative and 1 positive. Never, or at least for me, I try to never have all the traits be positive, all the traits be negative, because that's not interesting. The most interesting characters are the ones that have that duality to them. So why not Dr. Heinz Doofenshmirtz from Phineas and Ferb? Oh, he's a good one too. Like, he's such a nice, lovable guy, but he is actually evil, and you've got him fighting platypus. I've actually never really seen a full episode of Phineas and Ferb, which is sad because I always hear good things about it. Growing up, Cameron and I just never had that show, so missed out on it. But I've seen bits and pieces of it, and it's so good. Lotso from Toy Story 3. That would be a great one. It's just this kind guy who walks with a cane, and he's got this accent, and he's just so sweet until he pushes you into the trash compactor. So we can do this. We can make a character that has that feeling in there. So we didn't talk about this earlier, but let's do this here. When you think of these characters, let's say you have to come up with a character like this. Once you come up with these adjectives to describe your character, look up images of the characters that you feel kind of represent that. So I'm just doing some image searches here, see what we get. Okay, so we've got Lotso the bear. Pretty simple. Like, you get that nice, lovable, super cuddly. But then you have scenes like this, where that cuddliness is still there. He's still soft and fuzzy. But there's something wrong with his eyes. There's a darkness in there. You can really see it there. Right here, that kind of just, he doesn't care. So we could go with a little bit of that. But he's still got that, like, cuddliness to him. You go with Megamind. I love this show. A lot of people don't remember this show, or they kind of forget about it, but I really liked it. It was so much fun. So you could go with the funny route there, where he's evil, but he's really a good guy. Like, this is much more exaggerated, like that contrast between good and evil. Or you go the Hannibal route, and you go with that. Now that is definitely kind of the evil face right there. But then you have like scenes like this where, oh, just a normal guy, unassuming, kind. Like there. there's a oh I have been missing sips. Sorry, I totally forgot. Thank you, Johan and Tara, for the reminder. So this scene right here, this is a really good example of that pose where he looks kind. He doesn't look like someone, like, if you sat at this table, this is someone who would share his food and his drink and like, yeah, sit down. He's very polite. But there is a darkness there where you look at this guy and it's either it's going to be 50-50. He either greets you nicely and you have a wonderful meal, or he'll stab you in the neck halfway through the meal and that's it. So we could go with all sorts of character designs here. So you look these up, do a little bit of research on how you would want to pose that. I'd run out the door seeing that. Yeah. I really love the Hannibal series. Just the acting, the subtle acting in there. Oh, really good. And then the fact that Mads Mikkelsen is such a nice guy in real life. For anyone who doesn't know, Mads Mikkelsen here. He's just a really sweet guy in general, and a really nice actor. Him and the actor who played Will in the series apparently became really close friends, and they were just goof off on the set. And then you actually see him playing the character, and it's just this super dark mass murderer. That's just a weird contrast. But let's kind of go with that. I'm probably going to go a little bit more of the Hannibal route, just because we've got the two negatives. We've got violent and evil versus kind. And like, at least for me, when I think of evil, like Megamind is evil, but more so he says he's evil. He's trying to play evil, but he's actually kind. So this is, we'll actually explore this a little bit. This is up to you how you want to interpret things, especially when it comes to your own shot. But for example, I would assume, working at DreamWorks here, let's say we were working on this film, as we're animating this character and as we're told who this character is, one of the key things is that we are animating someone who is actually not evil. He's playing the part of the villain, but he's not evil. And that's a big distinction between someone who is evil. Like, I would say the what's his name? I forget the kid here. He became evil at the end. That was true evil. That just like, I want the power and I want to just do whatever I want. Maybe not evil, maybe a little bit more misguided, but Megamind to me is not evil. Same thing with Despicable Me. He's playing the part of the villain. He is the villain, but he's not evil. He's just the antagonist. Lotso starts to fall a little bit more into the evil side. He's a little bit more misguided and kind of tortured, but he's starting to do these things because he wants to hurt others like he was hurt. So he starts to me, that is actually more evil. Oddly enough, the guy who's all pink and fuzzy is more evil than the guy with big spikes on his shoulders. But it's a very clear distinction here. And with your characters, we have to be very aware of that, especially when we're working on a film where the characters that we're working on, just because they're the good guy doesn't mean that they're the good guy, if that makes sense. What's a good example of this? Gaston. Gaston is a good example. Let's look up here. Gaston. Gaston is the villain of the film, yes. But at the beginning, he is the town hero. Hans from Frozen. That's a great one. That's an amazing example there. So, Gaston from Beauty and the Beast. At the beginning of the film, yes, he's kind of shown as the villain right away in terms of his attitude, but he's also the town hero. Everyone loves him. So in terms of who this character is in the film and the world, he's the good guy. He's the one that's going to stop the Beast. The Beast is the evil one. He's the one in the castle, and he's enslaved everyone, and like everyone's cursed because of him. And that's the whole point of the film, is that the good guy, the handsome prince, is in fact evil, and the Beast is in fact good. So that is something that we can play around with. You have the sheep from Zootopia. What's her name? Bellwether? What is her name? And I'm gonna have to. Zootopia. Is it Bellwether? I think so. Yeah, Bellwether. Yay! Dawn Bellwether. I didn't know her first name was Dawn. Interesting. So yeah, her. Like, this is a great example of someone who is good and turns out to be evil. So we have a lot of these types of examples here. And as animators, we have to be very aware what the end goal is and who is this character. Are they actually truly evil? So in this case, I'm going to try to... The Grinch. Yeah, the Grinch is... It depends on the version of the story that you want to tell. He's not evil. He is misguided. He is... what's the word I'm looking for? He hasn't been shown love, so he doesn't give love. He's just bad. He's nasty, but not evil. Jafar, yeah, that character is evil. That is, or Ursula. Ursula is power hungry and evil. Maleficent. Maleficent is just, she's evil for the sake of evil's sake. Like, that's it. She just does it because, yeah, she's gonna destroy the land. Why? Because, oh, you're gonna curse an entire kingdom? Why? Because you didn't invite me. It's like, that's evil. It's her nature to just be mean. Wreck-It Ralph is the bad guy. Wreck-It Ralph is evil bad guy. No, he's not. He's a nice guy put into the role of the bad guy and doesn't want to do that. Yeah, Zuko. That's a great example there. He's not evil. He's trying to regain his honor and come back to his family because he feels like he's done something wrong and wants to do better. He's not chasing the Avatar because he wants to destroy the world. No. He wants to do it because that's what his father told him, and he wants to be a good son. That's a good person right there. It's that line of evil is something that we have to be very careful of, especially as animators, because it really affects how our characters are portrayed. And in most cases, I would argue, characters are almost never evil. They have a reason for what they do. So this is a whole topic just on the word evil and what it means. But yeah, it's as animators, it comes down to when we hear these topics, we really have to be aware of the role of the character in the film does not equal what and who they are. So yeah, Abram Van Helsing in Hotel Transylvania 3, that was a good character. I love that character. I need to watch Hotel T again, the whole series. Such good animation. So let's start posing this guy out. So I'm gonna go, let's see, what were our prompts again? Kind, exciting. So kind, he's gonna be, his face is gonna be nice, he's gonna be generous, he's not gonna be looking down with a scowl, it'll be pleasant to look at. He's exciting, so exciting in this case I'm gonna take as not being like exciting, yeah, he's a party dude kind of thing, but more like he's got energy to him, so he's not totally relaxed and evil or like just kind of calm. There's just this kind of like underlying like, yes, how's it going, and he's just like a little bit more bubbly, I guess you could say, but he's also violent and evil. So there's the smile might just have a little bit of a extra twist to it. He's evil, so that kind look should also have a feeling of like a predator. Like he's watching you and he wants you to be happy, but more like he's fattening you up before he actually strikes. So he still wants to be nice, but let's see. I guess it depends on if you're distinguishing between intrinsic kindness and extrinsic kindness. There's a difference between kind and manipulative. Exactly. Well, you just look at Mother Gothel. That's a great example. She was kind to Rapunzel. She took care of her. She gave her a place to live. She was her mother, but she was manipulative. She gaslighted Rapunzel all the time. She only cared about Rapunzel because Rapunzel had the hair. And I love Tangled because they really showed that clearly, where you have those lines where Mother Gothel says, I love you, and then Rapunzel says, I love you more, and then Mother Gothel goes, I love you most. And at first glance, it's like, oh, what a sweet little dynamic. But if you actually look at it, when she says, I love you most, and I think it happens twice in the film, she always looks at the hair, and she pats the hair. She's not saying, I love you most to Rapunzel. She's saying, I love you most to the hair. And that is wonderful storytelling. It's very subtle. If you were just to hear the line, it's just a line. But the animators and whoever came up with the idea, storyboarded all of that, really put a lot of work into showing just how much any good thing she talks, or anytime she praises Rapunzel, it's to the hair. And anytime she's actually talking to Rapunzel itself, it's putting her down. Saying she put on a little bit more weight. Oh, look at the pretty lady in the mirror. Oh, and you're there, kind of thing. It's always putting Rapunzel down, praising the hair. So it's this very beautiful, it's sad, it's kind of dark, but it's this wonderful way of storytelling to show these details to the audience without having to explain it and have a narrator explain, oh, but she actually loves the hair. No, you see it and you feel it. So I love storytelling like that. I just absolutely love. So let's start making our evil person here. So if he's evil, like one of the basic ways we can make him evil is kind of just bring the feet in. It creates that Dracula-esque silhouette where the legs are just kind of together. Makes a triangle, makes them feel more villainous. Triangular shapes are kind of a more villainous form. So for example, if you look at Jafar, Let's find an image here. Everything is pointy. Everything kind of goes into these triangle shapes. His eyebrows are triangular. His nose is triangular. His mouth is kind of triangular. His whole chin is triangular. He's got just these points everywhere. Even his outfit, it's all pointy. So it makes him feel more villainous, even his lip. Rounder shapes make characters feel softer, which is where Megamind actually has a really beautiful design, in the sense of he's villainous, you've got that point of the chin, but he's also soft and like kind, and he's got this big round head, big round eyes. So it's a great little juxtaposition of the sharp features versus the nice round features. So if I want to make this character feel evil, I'm going to try and push that feeling in the silhouette. So bring his feet kind of close together. You don't necessarily have to do that. It's just one way I'm going to try here. Okay. Now he's going to lean forward. Man, I forgot that I still had this old version save. He looks like a caveman. It's just like, ugh. And just give him the monobrow and Cro-Magnon brow, and there you go. It's amazing how far the poses go. Okay, so we've got that in place. Let's see. Let me get back to our... So the violent part is going to be the hard one to sell. I think that's going to be mostly in the eyes, because otherwise it's going to be him having to like try and attack someone or be like very vicious, which would take away from the kindness and everything else. Well, specifically the kindness. So the violent and the kind are going to be hard to balance out, but we'll see if we can do it. So we're going to go for a little bit more of a subtle pose here. So his feet are going to be together. I'm still going to favor one leg versus the other. And let's favor the foot that's ever so slightly forward. The reason for that is when you take a step, if you have one foot slightly forward than the other, as you're going to take a step, the foot that's going to go forward next is the back foot. It's not going to be the forward foot. What that means is that if this character is violent, so someone who's ready to strike right away, if he balances himself on his back foot, that's going to make it harder for him to move forward. He's going to have to shift his weight over to the forward foot, then take a step. If his weight is already balanced on the forward foot, all he has to do is take a step. He just takes a step. So it makes him feel more predatory just by doing that. Do we have to do that? No. But in this case, I want him to feel like at any moment he could just strike. And it doesn't have to be a lot, just a little subtle amount. And then we're going to shift the weight just a little bit. And then let's take the body. Once again, this is our first pass, so it's going to be a little rough. That's fine. Okay. So I kind of want him to stand really nice and tall. Let's counter the twist in the body as well. So he's going to have a little twist in him. You can see how it's very subtle, but it keeps the character from feeling like perfectly flat and boring. I'm thinking like a little Sephiroth, where Sephiroth kind of stands very tall, but he's got this little twist to his body. A little bit like that. See, we're going to push this a lot in a bit. Now he's exciting, so he's got energy. So I'm not going to let the shoulders come down too much. I'm going to maybe bring them up a bit. Okay. So let's see if we can push the spine. So I'm looking at the chest and it just kind of feels very flat. So I'm going to try to push the curvature this way of his spine and then use the hips to counter that and hopefully get a little bit more of a forward lean and a little bit more kind of weight into the chest. Let's see. You could pose his hand so to be slightly behind his back or have it pose in a claw or fist, not showing to the world but present all the time. Yeah, that would be really cool. Where it's like ever so slightly just hidden behind him, but he kind of keeps it just like he's ready to just come out and grab you. Now, if he's going to do that, let's think. So this is where we want to think of our character. So he's got his left foot forward, which means he would step with his right foot forward, which means that if he's going to go and grab at you as well, it would be with his right hand because the whole side would reach forward. So we'll keep that hand kind of back a little bit. I like that idea. Let's see. How do you polish the spine? Since you usually counter animate the rotations of the cog with the other ones, do you clean up altogether like every rotate X? Yeah, usually I'll do the hips first. So I'll just do a pass on the hips, clean that up because I want to make sure that they work with the legs. And then I'll do the spine and I do all three spine controls together. Sometimes I'll do the hips and the spine together. But more often than not, it's the hips then the spine. Let's see. I'm just trying to think of how I would put the hand out. The elbow is going to be a little straighter. I like the idea of him reaching out. I like you guys are having some really good ideas here. It's going to be a fun little contrast there. And we can really get a nice pose with the hand. So let's kind of offer a hand here. Okay, he's a little, now that we're offering that hand, we're going to have to twist his body a little bit more. And then maybe reduce the amount of rotation here. Okay. Feel like I could push the line of action of the body a little bit more this way. Just to help emphasize that motion and that reach. Maybe a little too much. I would almost always rather exaggerate too far and then have to pull it back than not go far enough. No, we're losing a little bit of the kindness by doing this. Let's go the other way. So the reason why I was losing the kindness is it pulls him away from the person that he's reaching his hand to. So to emphasize that reach, I want to bend it the other way here. Just a little. Okay. We'll go with that for now. Okay. Now, let's get the head angle in here because the head angle is going to make a big difference. So, get the eyes in place. He's going to be looking down at the person. And if he's evil, the big thing is going to be he's going to look down. Not in a condescending way. It's not going to be like, oh, you. It's going to be kind. But he's still above them. We'll tilt the head a little bit. It'll make him feel just ever so slightly nicer. Let's see. Wondering if you're going to give feedback today. I'm going to try. It depends. I do have a lot of work that I need to get done today, unfortunately. So we'll see. Once we get this pose done, we can try for some quick feedback. I won't promise it though, just in case. Okay. So we've got that. He's a little off balance. You can see if you draw a line from his neck down, he feels like he's ever so slightly to the right of his feet. I'm just gonna push him back. Be a little straighter here. Okay. So first pass of the pose. We'll call that done. Let's push it to the next level there. So, like I was saying earlier, when you're posing, your first pass of pose is going to look terrible. Honestly, it is. That's fine. When you're posing things out, it's not about the first pass, it's about the last pass. And you want to just keep building up to that ideal pose. So don't worry about getting everything perfect right away. You want the idea first, block that in. From there, refine it once you feel like everything's kind of in a decent place. So let's do the reaching hand first. That's going to really help sell the kindness in here. So as he's reaching, I want to curl that hand in. Oops. Just a little bit there. And I mention this all the time when I'm posing hands, but what I'm doing is I'm just posing my hand out, and then I'm looking at the angles of the fingers. So a little bit more outstretched there. Now the other fingers kind of come together. This rig is the Jules rig from Animation Mentor. So he's a school rig from AM, which is also where I teach. And he's a really good rig. I like this rig. Okay. Now I don't want him to be overly grabby where his hand's like reaching out. It should be this gentle kind of kind reach. Okay. Now what's going to help with this is bring the fingers inwards. When people start posing fingers, this is one of the biggest things that I often see forgotten is that bring the fingers in just a little bit. Most people tend to leave the hands very flat, which just kind of kills the pose. Okay, so we'll go with something like that. That index finger is a little too bent back. And then the thumb. We'll get that to reach just a little bit more. There you go. So a nice gentle offering of the hand. Okay. So the other hand, we kind of want to bring kind of slightly hidden. We could even, let's try this. We'll try to make him feel like he's trying to be polite and bring his whole arm behind him like that. So he's very kind of proper. Now, because he's got such a long arm compared to his thin body, we're going to have to pose this out just a little bit here to avoid the hand kind of being visible right away. And let's kind of bring that shoulder up and maybe a little bit further back. We'll bring that hand up and in a little bit. And this hand, like, we're going for a little bit of the obvious evil here, but we can go with a little bit more of that kind of claw shape, just for the sake of it. This is something in general I would try to avoid because it's a little too like on the nose. It's like, oh, he's evil, claw. Well, actually, here, how can we be a little bit more subtle? Like, the claw could work, but let's try this. I want to go with something like more like he's waiting, and it's more like, yes, they're gonna, it's happening. I'm gonna trick them. So it's more thinking. I could go with the claw motion, but whenever I think of something like that kind of claw motion, it always makes me think of Harry Potter and which one was it? Goblet of Fire, the film. And I love that film. I love the Harry Potter films. But I will say that it has one of my least favorite things in there, which is, for anyone who hasn't seen it, it's not really a spoiler. Well, I guess it is. So if you haven't seen that film and you want to watch it, spoiler alert. But Mad Eye Moody in there. You have him in the film, and he has this twitch where he licks his lips, and he's just always licking his lips. And partway through the film, again, spoiler alert, this is actually a pretty big spoiler, so if you haven't read the books or seen the movie, warning. You find out that it's actually Barty Crouch, who is impersonating Mad Eye Moody, and you see it in a flashback where he's in prison and he's on trial and he's licking his lips. He's doing the same, sticking his tongue out. I really don't like that. I really, really don't. It is so annoying. And the reason I find it annoying is that it's just too obvious. Instead of trying to sell the personality of the character and these little mannerisms or quirks, very subtle things where you'd see the two characters side by side and go, wait, they're the same person. Oh my God. Or to see just the little details. They basically just slap you in the face and go, see, tongue sticks out. It's the same person. It's too obvious. You're just yelling it at the audience. Hey, it's the same person. Keep in mind. It's like, again, I love that film. I really do love it. But that choice, not my favorite. I would have really liked it if they had done something subtle that as the audience, when you watch the film a second time, you go, oh my God, how did I not see that? He was there the whole time. Snape is one of my favorites as well. Alan, what's his name? Alan Rickman did such a good job. Yeah, exactly. Respect the audience's intelligence. A good example of a film that did that type of thing well was The Sixth Sense. So again, spoiler for anyone who hasn't seen that. If in The Sixth Sense, you're watching the whole film and it's this guy who's talking to this kid who can see dead people, and you're trying to figure out like how is this doctor going to help the kid? What's going to happen? The poor kid, all of that. And then at the end of the film, you find out that the doctor you've been following through this whole film has been dead the whole time. And when you look back and rewatch the film, it was there from the beginning. They never lied to the audience. They never tricked you. It's just you didn't see the signs. You didn't see the obvious little hints that they gave throughout the film that, yeah, the person that you're following is actually dead and no one he's interacting with can actually see him. That was brilliant. And I would have loved if they had that kind of feeling in Harry Potter, where you watch the film and it's all there. There's all these little clues and this evidence that points to Mad-Eye Moody not actually being who he says he is. And all of this just to say that, like, as I'm posing this out, I could very easily go with the evil claw hand. But that would be giving away the story to the audience. It's telling the audience, oh no, he's not actually a nice guy. He's a really evil person. So instead, I would prefer to have this hand motion subtle and kind of make it feel like he's planning something, but without just kind of yelling it at the audience. So we have one hand that's generous, one that's a little bit more like tight and thinking, but without being overly, again, bad guy, watch out. I'm going to just put a little bit more pressure into the fingers here to help sell that. Okay. So we've got that. Got the hands pretty much in place. What are the top 3 animation softwares paid? Like top 3 used by big animation companies? Maya is definitely the top. That's definitely the industry standard at the moment. After that, I would say, it's tricky. Games used to use 3ds Max quite a bit, but I think that's kind of fallen out of kind of overall use. So I would have said 3ds Max a while back, but not anymore. I would say maybe 2D. Yeah, probably Maya, Houdini, Cinema 4D. Yeah, I would agree with that. Houdini, especially if you're doing anything with physics. Okay, so 2D animation software, it would be TV Paint, Toon Boom Harmony, and those are really the main 2, honestly. There's not really any other like professional grade 2D software that's like used in a lot of different studios. Adobe Animate. No, not Adobe Animate. Some people use Adobe Animate, but not studios. Toon Boom is really good for 2D. Yeah, it's specifically made for 2D. Really, the difference between Toon Boom and TV Paint is they tend to be used in different parts of the world. So if you're working in, for example, the United States or the Americas, most people in studios will tend to use Toon Boom. If you're using, or if you're in Europe, most people will tend to use TV Paint. At least that's from what I've seen. So if you're in the US, I would recommend Toon Boom Harmony, just because if you're going to get hired by a studio or something like that, more likely they're going to be using that software. Now, I have used Toon Boom Harmony a little bit, mostly the storyboarding software for it, and it's really good. I have wanted to use TV Paint, but I never really got too much of a chance to try it out, so I can't really give a comparison to them. Now, I do want him to be evil, so one thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to shrink his eyes a little bit. Now, I could go super obvious and make it like that. That's definitely going to make him feel evil. I don't want that much. I want it to be like, maybe he's just got small eyes. Like, you never know. It could just be he's looking into the sun. Not, oh yeah, he's obviously evil. He's got crazy eyes. Don't disrespect Adobe Animate like that. My first exposure to animation on Adobe Animate. Adobe Animate is great for kind of your own work, but for commercial work, at least from what I've heard, I haven't used it myself, but I know a few people who have tried to use it for professional work, and it's not reliable enough, unfortunately. I do know that they're coming out with a new update for it, though, which I think is going to solve some of the problems. So that's good. But yeah, I don't know of any studios that use Adobe Animate. So part of what's going to make him feel evil here is making sure that the smile doesn't reach the eyes. So normally when I'm animating a smile, I try to add a little pressure to the eyes and make it feel like the cheeks are pushing into the lower lid. Here I want to keep it very relaxed, so we see this smile, but nothing's really going up into the eyes. The eyes are a little flat, and that's just going to help make sure that he feels like he's kind of got this ulterior motive. So, does Maya sell permanent licenses? No, it's all subscription. So if you're doing freelance, you can get the Maya Indie subscription, which is, I forget how much, $200 a year, something like that, which isn't actually that bad. American, I mean, of course. So if, depending on the country you're in, it could be a lot more. But the Maya Indie license is pretty good. That's what I use for my work. And yeah, it's great. For me, I'm not a huge fan of subscription-based services, but at the same time, I do appreciate always having the latest version, which is really nice. My favorite piece of software is ZBrush, though. I bought ZBrush, I don't know how many years ago now, and it's a permanent license, and you get all the updates for free. No paying, nothing. It's just, yep, there's an update. Here you go. It is wonderful. I love ZBrush. They did such a good job with that. Let's see. Kind of want to see what I can do with the shape of the mouth. He should look kind, so I don't want to give him like a Grinch smile. But I do want to see if I can push the smile a little bit more. Just a little bit. There's a little bit more relaxed. So let's see how this feels. There we go. So he's smiling, but there's not really that caring in the smile. There's a lack of warmth in here. So he's kind, but we're starting to get a little bit of that. Let's actually, if he's going to be exciting, I'm going to bring that head down just a little bit more. So he kind of, actually, here, let's do it this way. If he's supposed to be exciting, let's make him a little bit more excited. Open those eyes up a little bit more. Not too much. Because if you go too much, it'll definitely go into the creepy territory. But let's make him just a little bit less relaxed. So it's like he's offering his hand. It's like, take it. Come on, take it, take it, take it. You can almost feel that energy building up in him as he wants you to take his hand. I'm thinking a little bit of like Pennywise in there, kind of that. Oh, he'll offer, but then he really wants you to do it. Have you ever done an entire stream in French? No, I've wanted to, but my French is rusty. I don't get to speak it that often. And then since I do mostly animation streams, all my animation terms are in English, so I'd have to try and translate everything on the fly. It's kind of like how whenever I talk about math, I have a hard time because I learned all of my math in French. So when I'm trying to talk to someone about math stuff, I have so much trouble translating the words sometimes. Let's see, straightening the arm here is going to help add that excitement. Maybe push him forward just a little bit more. Put the weight onto his toes. That'll help make him feel a little bit more excited. Now we're losing the violent in here. So let's try to sell that a little bit more in the eyes. And actually, we could do it in the smile too. So I just want a little bit of a... Let's lower that bottom lip there. And just add a little bit of shaping. Okay. First, let's seal the corners. Looks like he's saying, take a seat, the floor is right there. Yeah, kind of. Let's do it this way. So I just kind of want this lopsided grin. Let's see. And you can see I'm trying it out myself as I'm doing it. Trying to feel it out. kind of a little, I'm thinking Joker a little bit. And you'll notice I do this a lot when I'm talking about these poses, is I'll compare it to another character, Joker, Pennywise. I'm constantly kind of comparing these. And this helps me kind of get an idea of what can I do to make it feel better. If you're just trying to come up with it on the fly and make it everything up on your own, it makes it very difficult to get things to work because you're having to come up with everything. But if you compare it to different characters that you've seen that have that attribute that you want, you can start to build that in just a little bit more. So I just kind of want this very crooked kind of grin in here. To know references and just watch a movie. So it's important to know references and just watch a lot of movies and shows. Yeah, it's important to have something to base your characters off of. If you're just making everything up on your own without kind of building it off of something real, I say real, not that these characters are real, but you're just kind of making everything up, you don't know what your end goal is, and you're just going to be guessing most of the way. It's looking at reference. If I'm going to be animating anything, I want to look at reference. I want to make sure that my motions feel believable and real, and that the audience, when they look at it, are going to get the reaction I want them to have. So I want that to really go to shine through. And you do that by basing your ideas off of reality or of other things. Things that you had that same feeling to. You don't copy them. That's not the thing, but you are being inspired by them. So, for example, Star Wars is a very unique show, very unique movie. But it was inspired by the Seven Samurai, Kurosawa film. Does it mean that it copied it? No. It just means that they saw that they were inspired by elements of that film, and then they used those elements and made something new out of it. Just gonna move the teeth a little bit here, just to get a little bit better line. And this could be anything. Like, it could be film, it could be books. If you've read a book that has just a really good character to it, you could try to incorporate that character that you read about into the motions of the of your character in the scene. I do that a lot, where I love reading books. So when I'm reading a book, I'll take inspiration from scenes I've read and then try to incorporate them into my animation in some way or another. It's not copying from what the book did exactly, but it's just trying to be inspired by it. I think we could make the eyes just a tiny bit smaller. There we go. Let's see. So, we could keep with this, but hopefully the idea is clear. Suddenly, we've got two characters here. Let's actually bring them, well, we'll leave them out there. we've got two characters here, and by posing them out first, we suddenly have a very clear idea of how these characters would move. Like I was talking about at the beginning of the stream, the whole point of this demo is that when you're taking your animation and you're about to start moving your characters, it's a good thing to pose them out first. Really find out who your characters are, what you want them to feel like. Once you know that, it makes it much easier to pose and animate them. So when we look at this, these are the same rig. If we see this, how would these characters move? Vanilla walk, I guess. They would just, they have to sit down. How would they sit down? I don't know. Who knows? We're just guessing. But when you have this, how are these characters going to move? We get a little bit of a clear idea. One's going to be timid and just trying to not get in people's way. He's a little scared. I could push the slack jaw a little bit more. So he's going to be very slow and careful. The other person's very upright, where they're going to be moving, but they're going to be very deliberate about their actions. They will take charge of the situation a little bit more. Their strides could be much wider or shorter. So it's let's see. Is this model available for free? No, this model is for Animation Mentor students. So if you're enrolled in Animation Mentor, you're going to get this rig once you get into class 4. But now we have two characters that are very clearly a different person. And we get this idea of how we can animate them. And this goes for any scene. In this case, we use the same rig, but like I showed at the beginning of the stream, we can do that with characters that are totally different. So we go from that default T-pose into a character, an actual person. And once you do this, it makes animation much easier because you can work from this pose and make something fun and interesting that captures that character versus just being rig, just T-pose. Meh. So it's something I would recommend all of you try a little bit in your own work, which is to pose out your characters before you start animating them. Just a generic pose. You don't have to spend as long as I was doing here. This was kind of trying to get all of these little subtleties and trying to fit 4 adjectives into a scene. That's why I don't normally go with 4. I go with 3. I find 4 is too much to try and fit into one pose. But go with 3 adjectives, describe your character, and see if you can make all of that read and sell that personality. So hopefully that makes sense. Hopefully it helps. It's definitely something that helps me a lot whenever I'm animating a scene, especially when I'm trying to envision what the character would do or say or kind of how they would act. And then can I check out your show reel? Let's see, do I have time? I can take a quick look, super quick. Maybe like 3 or 4 minutes. Just a quick look, just because I've got a lot of work that I need to get done today and I have to start preparing for that. And the character generator website, let me get you the link, is right here. Now the nice thing with this website is that there are 4 slots here, but you don't have to use them all. So you could just do 3. So 1, 2, 3. Smart, inspiring, sadistic person. There. Or you do 1 positive, 2 negatives. There you go. Or you just do 2. Or you just do 1. If you're just starting out, it could be good to just try 1. So try to make a creative person. How would you make a creative person? They'd be thinking, they would be like inspired by what they see. There'd be this kind of spark in their eye. An energetic person, well, that's kind of easy. It's just like high energy. Everything's like go. They're ready to move all the time. A bright person. Bright is kind of a sort of intelligence, but there might be a little bit more of like a smile to their face. It's not just smart and book smart. There's this inner light that comes out, this inner spark of just happiness and intelligence, and just they brighten a room when they come in. A generous person. It could be someone like, just imagine someone who's taking care of kids and being generous to a bunch of kids. Maybe it's a person who owns the candy store and they always give that extra little candy to the kid that walks in. Think of things like that. Once you have that, try 2. See how that works. So it's a really good posing test and just a good test of your ability to read characters. If you don't know how a certain adjective would work, do some research on it. How can you sell a generous person? Think of generous people. Look that up. Just like I did with the villainous ones, I looked up Hannibal Lecter and Lotso from Toy Story, all of those. That allows us to kind of get an idea of, oh, this is how they make these characters feel evil. How can I do that in my character? So